The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Faster my, good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. Open line through till 1 o'clock. Remember, we do have a yellow weather warning for heavy rain from 10 o'clock tonight till 5 tomorrow morning. So just in case you were doing some midnight caroling rehearsal, just be aware of that. Another thing to bring to your attention is police are appealing for help in locating a missing 14-year-old girl. Finola Balakrishna was seen at 9:30 yesterday evening wearing a black coat and a grey tracksuit. She's described as slim-built, 5 foot tall with long dark hair. Now, the constabulary stressed that Finola is not in any trouble, but they urge anybody with information to contact police headquarters 631212, quoting reference number 42. That is Finola Balakrishna, who went missing from the Glen Vine area yesterday evening, last seen at 9:30. If you have any information, or indeed if Finola's listening, please get in touch with the police 631212 and quote reference number 42. Elizabeth's first with us today. Hi, Elizabeth.
How you doing, darling?
Good. How's the roof?
The roof is still the same. I've had nobody fix it. I was told I wasn't allowed to touch it by the original roofers. They said if anybody up there and touch it, they will not be responsible because they will wash their hands off it if anybody touches it, because they did. And they have lawyered up now, and I've had to get a lawyer as well. And as you see, you've just said there's heavy rain coming in, yes. And since the last time I was talking to you, it has rained and rained and rained. And like I said, my house is destroyed.
How do you cope with the rain, Elizabeth?
I don't. I just have to let it blooming rain. I can do nothing about it, can I? I mean, I pray to God that he wouldn't rain as much as he does, but he is, you know. No, I have been using the dehumidifier, sort of like, but it's cost me a fortune electric, you know. And like I said, the new skylight they put in, that's leaking as well. And then they send me a letter saying their work is up for the highest standard. Laudable.
And this was how long ago? 7 years, was it?
Yeah, well, it was May 2017. But then it was September when they put those things up the side, which caused the majority of the problem. I had 2 years with a hole in the side wall before they came and lobbed a bit of cement on it. And that didn't cure it, but they never come back. They writ on my wall in September 23 about the damp. I wrote on 23rd of September, and the August, the 23rd of August and the 21st, wrote on the back wall. It was only one wall to begin with, and they took damp readings and wrote it on the wall, but they never come back to do anything about it.
So have you been in touch with the Office of Fair Trading at all?
The Office of Fair Trade, yes, I was in touch with them in 2022. They're washed in a drink of water. They're no good, really no good. And I went with them this year, and they said, oh, I'm sorry, because it's been over 6 years, there's nothing we can do. But I says, I've had them back in 2019, 2020, 21, 22. You know, something to do, but they did nothing. Fair trading standards, rather. Yeah, and I've been in touch with MHK, and she said you'd ring me back, and then she didn't.
So what would be your advice then if anybody was to have roof work done nowadays? If you'd known then what you'd know now, what would you do different?
I would never have hired whom. I would ask somebody who is the best roofer, and this person told me this company were the best, which turned out not to be the best, because even though he in his original quote, he said he would put my own tiles back on the front of the roof, and he didn't. So he put artificial slates on my roof and on the back as well, I say. But this is all in the hands of lawyers. I'm not allowed to name anybody.
Yes, please don't.
But they know who they are, yeah? They know who they are. But yeah, I've asked the scaffolding man to put the scaffolding up now. He's maybe doing it next week. Because he got the permission to put the scaffolding up weeks and weeks ago. But they said, if you put that scaffolding up and touch that roof, we will take no responsibility. So, anyway, just let you know.
All right, we appreciate it.
And if there's any survey, I'm looking to get a hold of a surveyor to go up there and do an up. I've had a survey done, but he did it from the ground. But I need a surveyor to go up when the scaffolding's up and have a look at it. Nobody will ring back. I've left loads of messages for loads of surveyors. They won't ring. Okay, my son's coming out.
All right,
okay.
Well, if anybody's a surveyor and wants to get involved in this, by all means, get in touch with us. We'll pass your details on to Elizabeth and the tale of the leaky roof. Julian's on with us today. Hi, Julian.
Hi, Andy. Well, speaking of construction, I'd just like to talk about the recent meeting in Port St Mary on the proposed Earystane wind farm that was hosted by the MUA together with members of the consultancy firm Wardell Armstrong. Just for reference, if anybody hasn't seen that yet, there's a video of the whole meeting that can be seen on the YouTube channel Amadeus IOM. And specifically, what I want to talk about happened at 2 hours and 8 minutes into the video during the Q&A session. And there were a couple of assertions that were made by one of Wardell Armstrong's environmental impact consultants, Paul Evans, following some questions from an audience member. The first assertion that Paul made was that there is no significant quantity of microplastics shed from wind turbines, otherwise they would fail regularly. Just a couple of points on that one. First, you got the study from the University of Strathclyde, who collaborated with Sweden, which that research paper is called Leading Edge Erosion and Pollution from Wind Turbine Blades. And that study indicates that the 5 turbines at Earystane would shed around 500 kilos, or about half a ton, of microplastics per year. Not forgetting the ingredient within that microplastic, the bisphenol A, which is the carcinogenic compound which is within the epoxy that covers the blades. Interestingly, the largest wind turbine manufacturer in the world, Vestas, they have a dedicated page on their website which is titled Modelling of Leading Edge Erosion Patterns. And the first sentence reads, leading edge erosion of wind turbine blades is a high priority topic for the wind industry. And the number one UK company for refurbishing wind turbine blades, a wonderful name, they're called Dangle. Their staff abseil hundreds of feet down wind turbine blades on ropes with sanders and epoxy resin applicators, refurbishing the blades by hand. And interestingly, their website, which is onropes.co.uk, states, all wind turbine blades will experience leading-edge erosion. Unprotected blades show sign of leading-edge damage in 2 to 5 years, necessitating refurbishment on an ongoing basis. So I think there probably is an element of problems with leading-edge erosion, especially in our climate with salt crystals in the atmosphere.
What did you think to the meeting? What was the mood like?
Well, it seemed to me that the majority of people had a lot of questions that they didn't get answered as you would expect, and that was one of them. The other one, Paul makes an assertion that infrasound or low frequencies from turbines as a pollution has been disproven. And he went on to cite 2 reasons, which were quite interesting because without him saying it, I never would have thought to look. But the first one that he mentioned was the Ministry of Defence has got a seismic detection array in Eskdalemuir in Scotland, which is designed to pick up sound waves from things like earthquakes, volcanoes and nuclear tests. So if a country does an underground nuclear bomb, it'll pick it up. And he said it's not affected by wind turbines. But what he didn't mention is, if you actually go and look on the Ministry of Defence's website, They've got an exclusion zone banning any wind farm deployment within 50 kilometres or 31 miles of that detector, which amounts to around 8,000 square kilometres. And they cite concerns about infrasound emissions from wind turbines causing interference to a device concerned with national security. Now, you've got to bear in mind that that the entire length of the island, as the crow flies from the Sound up to the point of air, is only 30 miles, and they're only about 13 miles wide. So they've got an exclusion zone a mile longer than the entire Isle of Man's length. So you're never more than 15 miles away from anywhere on the island. So there's a concern in terms of the scale of the island, if we do have a problem with this.
What's your feeling, Julian, about the progress of this, or lack of it, if you like, of this wind farm development? I mean, it's been talked about. I mean, Michelle Hayward was on a couple of weeks ago as one of the Russian MHKs talking about the plans for the road and everything going up Balaklawi, building a new road across. It seems that they're making plans for this already, and they don't normally make plans if it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You had Mr. Hubbard on the other day talking about Kroger, and then you had Chris Thomas making sure that things are done properly and planning and all the rest of it, but it doesn't seem to apply to the wind farms. It seems that the rules seem to be sort of going around. And as Julian asked again and again, and I've asked the same question, Michelle Hayward made a statement, which you can still see on the Manx Radio website. We would have had cheaper electricity if we'd had wind turbines long ago. There is no wind farm farm jurisdiction, whether it be Denmark, Belgium, any of those jurisdictions, that haven't at least doubled their electricity prices since they've had wind farms put in. So the proof of the pudding is in the eating, isn't it? Would Michelle please come on and say, where is this jurisdiction which has had cheaper electricity, in the last 15 years? Because if you even with the Ukraine war putting prices up, it's still an extremely expensive way to do things because it's intermittent. You've got to ramp up other sources of power. So I don't know. It's there were a lot of questions at that meeting that weren't answered. The final thing I was going to mention was he made out that he lives only 700 metres away from an onshore wind farm in his village, and nobody has complained. But again, what he didn't mention was that his local wind farm is called Four Boroughs Wind Farm in Truro in Cornwall. But the turbines are only a quarter of the size of the ones that they're talking about at Earystane.
Oh, I see.
So the smaller the turbine, the higher the tone. The big ones are the ones that are causing problems, resonating like a drum on people's houses. Those things are a fraction of the size. So no wonder nobody's complaining, because his local wind farm is tiny.
And off the top of your head, how big are the ones planned for Earystane?
They're going to be around about 136 odd metres across the diameter, whereas the ones with Paul Evans are about 34 metres. So, it's a quarter of the size. And, it's a bit like musical instruments. A flute will make to a certain tone, but if you want lower tones, you go longer. Say an alphorn from Switzerland or a didgeridoo, the longer it goes, the deeper the tone. So the problem with these larger wind turbines started in about 2003 when they started going over 60 metres in diameter. The tone gets lower the bigger they go, and then you start getting into those low frequencies between about 2 and 5 hertz that are the ones that are causing people to literally not be able to sleep at night. Yeah. So the smaller turbines are not so much of an issue as the big ones are.
Obviously, we've heard many times, Julian, about the fact that it's obviously that you're implacably against the Earystane development. Does anybody ever? The people come on and they say, you're holding back progress. You're kind of tilting at windmills, if you like. Do you get any sense of that? Are you convinced this is the wrong thing to do?
Well, actually, I'll qualify what you said. I'm implacably against on- and offshore wind farms anywhere near us. And to be honest, the UK is starting to notice this now. It's not for nothing that Ørsted are now over 6 billion in losses, because they're realising now that without massive subsidies, they're not able to get bids, because if they don't get the subsidies, they've got to pass that on to the customer. And customers, I mean, unless the Isle of Man really wants to have 70, 80 pence a unit electricity, you're going to be seeing doubling or trebling of your electricity bills.
But surely no government would impoverish the population in that way.
Now, there's a long question, but I don't think we've got time for that one. But, as Duran has said, World Economic Forum, you've got a few different things there where there are people who are pointing the finger at just such a thing. I think one of the things, like a correlation with this is, if you look at Paul Evans's qualification, he's listed on Wardell Armstrong's website as having a CENV, which is a chartered environmentalist. Now, the Society for the Environment states on its website that a chartered environmentalist qualification is for environmental professionals independent of discipline. So that kind of sounds like the MBBS qualification, which is the one that's used for GPs. Now, when you've got somebody perhaps with a general qualification, for them to be up in front of the population telling us that there's no problem with infrasound, there's no problem with microplastic shedding, geothermal doesn't work, it's a bit like a GP telling you, you've got cancer, for example, and telling you there's no point in doing anything. Whereas ordinarily, the GP would refer you to a specialist. And I think the problem with these wind turbines is there's a lot of specialist knowledge that needs to be looked at here and sort of cut through these sort of blanket, everything's fine, all these problems, that they're not an issue. Because when you look into what they say, it doesn't really stack up. I mean, why does Earystane seismic array have a 50-kilometre exclusion zone for wind farms around it when it's picking up infrasound? That kind of says there's a problem with low frequencies from wind turbines.
Okay.
So,
all right. Julian, we appreciate it. Thanks for calling today. Good to hear from you.
Thanks, Andy. Cheers.
24 minutes past 12. The MUA needs to tell us how much per kilowatt hour we're actually going to pay, says G. So we are spending on roads. If this goes ahead, there will be a new road. They'll haul the turbines up Balakillawi and turn right. We're paying extra money for all this, and 313 just says, can they tell us how much we're going to be paying then for kilowatt hours? Denmark does have expensive electricity from wind turbines, but this is due to taxes for social security policies rather than a specific energy policy. Electricity for industry, says 653, is actually one of the cheapest in Europe. 50% of their electricity comes from turbines. If we own the wind turbines, then we surely can set the energy cost for cheaper electricity. If they could, companies should be screaming that from the rooftops. Microplastic pollution will be an absolute disaster. It's linked to all kinds of cognitive decline. Wind turbines, says 179, just aren't right for us. And with reference to the beach in Laxey, that stormy weather's pushed a lot of the stones back up already. So the power of the sea wins, says 690. It's Susan now with us. Hi, Susan.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks. What about yourself?
Well, I'm very good, but I'm a little bit upset about the cost of the steam packet to get back to Manchester to pick my mum up so she can spend a week here at Christmas.
How much are you paying? Is this for a car and two?
It's for, on the way there, it's me, the dog and the car. And then on the way back, it's me, her, the dog and the car. And just to do the one trip is £400.
£400 return?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've had a few extras, to go in the lounge, which is probably a bit extravagant. But, she's 83, she needs a bit of TLC, and it's a nice treat for her. But it's just the cost of it, really. I think the biggest problem I've got with it is when you sort of look at the standard fare and the saver fare. So if you book it ages in advance, you get the saver fare. And if you leave it till the last minute, like because she's got a hospital appointments and stuff, in Manchester, you just have to pay the full whack all the time. And I don't think it's fair, because it's the only way to get across to the UK, isn't it? You haven't got a choice.
They say that kind of on average it stacks up per mile, and that £400 return for a car and passengers would be about the going rate. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think it's, obviously somebody's got to pay for the fuel for the ferry, and I do appreciate it that and we have to make money on things, like the TT. The island has to have, a sort of there's a happy medium, isn't there? But I think especially for the residents of the Isle of Man who use the ferry a lot, because I do use the ferry a lot, and I think the Manxman is a great ferry, and it's nice and big and spacious. It's a bit of a ghost ship, it does strange things when it goes round corners and stuff, but I think that it's just a bit sad that you can't go and get one of your parents across. And it's for a reasonable cost, really.
Well, years ago, I don't know whether you remember, but they used to have that thing where if you bought 4 tickets, you got the 5th one at a discount price.
Oh, well, that'd be a good idea as well.
That was years ago.
I mean, even like a season ticket kind of thing would be good.
What have you bought your mother for Christmas?
Well, the ferry ticket.
Oh, I see. Merry Christmas, Mum.
Yeah, I mean, she's really pleased that she's coming, and it's really going to cheer her up. And I tried using the, when you get one of your other relatives to drop them off at the ferry, at Heysham. Yeah. And then they get on with the assistants, the special assistants. And what happened with the special assistants was she got onto the ferry, and then I said, well, you're not going to get lost, Mum, because, obviously you can't get off the ferry. And she sat down and she was okay. And then when it came to getting off the ferry, this was when she got on at Liverpool, when she was going back to Liverpool, she tried to... first of all, nobody came to find her, so she was just wandering around aimlessly. She didn't hear the loudspeaker say, would all the people requiring special assistance go to a certain place? She didn't know where the place was, and she was just left on the ferry with this woman who was in a wheelchair.
Crikey, how long was that for?
Maybe we should just follow everybody else.
Well, wish her the best. When do you go and get her?
I'm going today, actually, so at least the wind stops, hasn't it? And it looks like it's on time, so hopefully it'll be a safe journey.
All right, wish her a Merry Christmas from us. Thanks for calling.
I certainly will. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. It's 29 minutes past 12. Mannin Line on Manx Radio today. And we're open line, by the way, through to 1. So what's on your mind? Flip it over to us.
For your new bathroom, head to Pacesetter, Harris Terrace, Douglas or Spring Valley. In Pacesetter's fully fitted showroom, you'll find the latest bathroom products and designs, from new contemporary styles to traditional Victorian tiles, wall and ceiling panels, accessories and much more. With many ranges exclusive to Pacesetters, plus professional design advice from the experts, visit Pacesetter, Harris Terrace, Douglas or Spring Valley.
You can get the best of everything, where the price is twice as nice.
70 million workdays lost. A cost of up to £99 billion to the UK economy. Can your business afford to ignore mental health? St John Ambulance have partnered with Mental Health First Aid England in a bid to transform workplace mental health and support staff. We are offering adult mental health first aid training courses to encourage early intervention, helping you recognise the signs and symptoms and guide a person to the right support. Call St John Ambulance on 674 387 today.
Have you been invited to take part in the Household Income and Expenditure Survey? It's one of the most important surveys for our island because the information you provide is vital data for our island's financial planning. It helps us calculate our VAT revenue from the UK. Plus, it gives us a better understanding of the financial strains on residents, so we can support those who are struggling. If you've been invited, please take part. Visit gov.im/HIES for more information.
Steam into Christmas with family and friends on the unique Isle of Man Railways dining car. Our winter events programme has something for everyone. Journey through the Manx countryside enjoying sparkling festive fun. To get into the Christmas spirit, book now by calling our Yuletide team on 697457 or visit rail.im and experience one of our festive train adventures.
This festive season on the nation's station, the winning continues with Manx Radio's 12 Days of Christmas.
We've got some massive prizes up for grabs, including an overnight stay at the Mannin Hotel, £50 to spend at Ramsey Garden Centre, and a Google Nest from KPMG.
And lots of other goodies under the tree that could be yours.
Manx Radio's 12 Days of Christmas. Brought to you by SpectrumWindows.im.
And it all gets underway this Wednesday.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
28 minutes now before 1. Stella's on. Hi, Stella.
Hi.
What's on your mind, Stella?
The steam packet.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with the cost and all the other things, but I travelled this weekend, and yes, I had to sit for 2.5 hours waiting because of the weather for them to load. And yes, I couldn't get back on the Sunday daytime because the cancellations, but again, the weather. But when I went on the 2:15 last night, I had the best care ever. They were so helpful. They did everything they possibly could for everybody. I've got a disability, and I booked a cabin because of the disability and having the dog. And they came down to meet me with the key. They helped me up through the lifts. They came back in the morning to check, did I want help taking down? Did I want help with the dog? With anything at all, they got me a drink because it takes me a while to go to the cafe. They were absolutely amazing. There's nothing they didn't do to help me.
That sounds fantastic. Did you get a good night's sleep, Stella?
Not really, because they don't allow you on till 1:30. But again, that's down to the freight, and we have to have the freight because we live on an island. So you don't really get long in the cabin, which is expensive. But as I say, they couldn't. They went out of their way to help me. All of them were polite and nice and happy and friendly. You know, it was made the trip bearable.
Brilliant. Well, we're happy to put that on record.
Yes, I did phone them this morning and tell them thank you.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Gab. Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers now, Stella. All the very best. Oh, Elizabeth's back with us today. Hello, Elizabeth.
Yeah. Well, regarding the fares, a friend of mine from Ireland, she's coming over in July, and they charged, and that lady said if you book in advance, you get it cheaper. Well, she booked last week for July next year, and it was €429 return for one person, one car. And it's a small car, and her and her sister are coming over, but it was €429 return, and that was booked for July next year. So booking in advance doesn't make it any cheaper.
Wow. I mean, what do you think will be reasonable? Do you for a car plus two people, do you think that is a lot too much or a bit too much or what?
I think it's a bit too, but I always thought that a car and a driver went as one person, but they're charging €214 per person on this bill that she sent me, £214.50 per person. But I always thought you paid for a car and a driver, and then you paid for your other passenger separate. This is what it said. I'm just looking at the bill she sent me. She sent me the dates, like she said, "Are these the dates all right? She's coming over to stay with me." So yeah, but it said £214.50 per person, euros. That is in euros, so it is. That's from Belfast to Douglas and Douglas to Belfast back, the 9th of July till the 17th of July.
Wow.
Well, yeah, and that's well in advance. I mean, that is really, she booked that well in advance. It's 8 months, July. Yeah, 8 months, over 8 months. She booked it last week. So I do think the steam packet, the fares have gone very, very, very expensive. So they have, yeah. Even a foot passenger is very expensive. At one stage, you could get for £24 return. Now, you'd be lucky if it got, well, you may get £24 one way, maybe something like that.
Yeah, I was just checking between Holyhead and Dublin. I mean, for a return, a car plus a couple of people, that's about £400 between Holyhead and Dublin. Yeah, it is. It's not cheap to go between Holyhead.
Well, I know the foot passengers fare isn't that dear, because I did the Dublin to Holyhead with my brother, because I have a brother in Chester, and I've been in Ireland, and we went over for my sister-in-law's funeral last year, and it was in the winter, you see, so I had to go from Ireland to Holyhead, and then I had to fly back to the Isle of Man. That would have been this January. It would have been in January, that's right. Yeah, but I can't remember exactly, but I don't think that fare per for passenger was only about, can't remember how much it was. I'd have to ask Brian, or even look on my bank statements.
Okay.
To see.
All right. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Well, that's what my friend's paying. Okay.
Good to hear from you. All the best to you. Just checking on. And the steam packet always say, if you take it mile per mile, that it isn't that expensive, or it's not that much out of kilter. However, at least it's our money that we're contributing towards. Yes, I think it's Holyhead to Dublin, return a car plus 2 people, I think, is the best part of £400. You may get it a bit cheaper, and certainly it may be a lot more expensive if you do their flexi tickets, perhaps £500 or more. But if you can get it cheap and have any comparable routes, I mean, I'm not saying the North Sea routes aren't really comparable, from Newcastle up towards Scandinavia, or from Newcastle towards Holland, or Hull towards Holland. But anyway, any thoughts on this? It's an oft-quoted topic, the price of the steam packet. Roger's on now. Hi, Roger.
Good afternoon, Andy. Just following on from the steam packet, was coincidence. It was going through my mind, but my wife and I, we travelled on the Manxman about 10 days ago, the first time on it, and on the return journey from Heysham to Douglas, we knew we had a fairly long drive beforehand, so for the return trip I booked a cabin, and the idea was to have a cup of tea and a nap. And when we got on board, and a few things was strange that we found, but mainly in the cabin we had a cup of tea and went to have a nap, and there was no blanket, which I don't know if you travelled on the bed. You always got a very light blanket. So I went down to the customer services, and the fellow there was polite, but he said that we don't do blankets, only on the night sailing. It's the way forward, and I'm still working out what he meant by
when you say forward. So was the bed made up?
No, they're bunks. There's 4 bunks,
right,
and it sort of folds down to make it into a bed. So you can sit there. A very small cabin. It's a bit like a Dandora home. You can hold your arms out and touch either side. And there's one chair and a very small table. One chair for could be 4 people.
I heard this rumour that there weren't blankets anymore, and on the Ben McCree, if you went in that, if you paid £17 for the lounge, you got a blanket there as well. So and everybody's got lots of them. I've got a half a dozen of the old blankets. So
well, that's probably why they're not doing them anymore.
Well, I mean, they weren't what you call luxury blankets. I think they were unwoven fabric. Weren't they?
Exactly, very light. But just the fact of to have if you can have a sleep. He said, you can turn the heating up, but that's not quite the same. It's just the way forward. That just struck me, those words. So if anybody's going and they want to planning on having a nap on a back, they might consider taking their own blanket, I guess.
Or take a sleeping bag, perhaps. That's the way to do it.
A sleeping bag, yeah. It's just slip there for a nap. I don't know what they're achieving. Maybe they did lose quite a number of them. I don't know. But I think from what he said, you get them on the night sailing, but not the afternoon sailing, and that's the way forward. So.
All right. Thanks, Roger.
Cheers, Andy. Take care.
All right. It's 19 minutes before what's important. I mean, those old steam packet blankets, well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, they're not collector's items, and I wouldn't have thought, as they were unwoven fabric, they would have laundered them and put them back in the plastic bag. Maybe that's the key. It's the plastic bag that's the barrier to it. But I have heard, and if you can prove me wrong, and it'd be terrific if you could prove me wrong, and they are still around, the steam packet blankets with the little embossed steam packet logo in the corner, then that would be terrific. The Church of England's Diocese of Sodor and Man is urging residents on the Isle of Man to contact their constituency MHK to voice their opinion as a matter of urgency. Urging as a matter of urgency. This follows lengthy debates in Tynwald about the future of the Bishop of Sodor and Man and the position within Tynwald. Recently, political support in the second reading of the bill, which would see the bishop's vote removed entirely, but still hold a place at the sittings, i.e. be there, not vote, a bit like the Attorney General and the Lieutenant Governor. Canon John Coldwell has been asked why now. And really, isn't this a bit late?
It's been a measured response to see what the general feeling has been, really, rather than it being jumping in feet first at the beginning. To take some time and some considerations from other people that are affected by it.
And what's the general consensus been from the people that you've spoken to?
I think people are concerned that it seems a minor constitutional change, but what comes next is one of the questions that's been asked. What's the next step that goes for change? And perhaps should it have been part of a bigger body of constitutional reform? The other comments that have been made is, why is it suddenly when we have no bishop to have a voice in the debate, and yet lots of people seem to be concerned that we retain the bishop's place within Tynwald and Ledgeco to bring a voice to a debate, but then want to take away the vote thereafter. So it's an interesting scenario. It's obviously something people have not really come across before.
So now there is no bishop in post at the moment. What do you think the bishop would be saying to the politicians in Tynwald about them trying to remove the vote?
That would be a purely speculative thing. It would depend on who the bishop would be and from what angle they would be coming from that. I think constitutionally, you look at the knock-on effect of a vote being taken away is what happens. The Bishop of Sodor and Man's a senior cleric within the Church of England, has access to a wealth of information and support both here and across. In some ways, perhaps we risk losing that quality of what a bishop can bring to a debate. Potentially, one of the ramifications could be that we do lose the bishop.
That's Canon John Coldwell talking about getting involved, really. The Church of England's Diocese of Sodor and Man urges you, if it bothers you, to contact your constituency MHK to voice your opinion as a matter of urgency. Do you got any thoughts on this? And do you think what Canon Coldwell said was that the politicians waited until there was no bishop to sneak this in through the back door because there will be no bishop there to have a say? Do you think that having the bishop with it, I mean, it's a very historic position, full of tradition, chock full of precedent for years and decades. This has happened. The bishop has been in Ledgeco and has had a vote. And do you think this is a minor change, or is it a major change? Do you think we're unpicking a bit of the Isle of Man that's been there hitherto, and it's not their job to do it? And certainly it wasn't a big plank of anybody's manifesto to do this. Any thoughts on this? And will you be contacting your MHK to have a chat about it? Adrian, thank you, Adrian. I've been collecting stamps for the RNLI for over 20 years. Unfortunately now, I've been informed that the RNLI is no longer collecting stamps. I've got 2 carrier bags full of stamps that have been given to me for the RNLI, and I'd like to know if there's anyone on the Isle of Man collecting for another charity, any charity that takes you stamps who could use them. By all means, get in touch with Adrian. 496088. That's 496008 for Adrian if you want some 2 carrier bags full of stamps for that. And it'd be interesting to know whether that used to be a big thing all the time to use, and probably now with fewer people using stamps. And indeed, we don't really have stamps, do we? We have postal tokens. You just buy those things that get printed out. We still haven't got any news, by the way, on the young woman who is missing from Glenvine, 14 years of age, a girl, really, a missing girl. She is Fanula Balakrishna. She was last seen in Glenvine at 9:30 last night wearing a black coat and a grey tracksuit. Slim build, 5 foot tall, long dark hair. She's not in any trouble. They just want to know where Fanula is. Contact police headquarters on 631212 and quote reference number 42. The RNIB apparently takes stamps. Thank you for that WhatsApper getting in touch. The RNIB, the Royal National Institute for the Blind do. Now, I don't know whether our own Manx Blind Welfare do, or now, of course, they're known as Sight Matters, but certainly that. Thanks also Douglas Hesham to Douglas, £528, nearly 4 hours. Portsmouth to Santander with a cabin and food, £908, 30 hours each way. Is that comparative? Steam packet fare structure needs modernisation, says Andrew. Their special offer fares are for up to 5 days of travel. Beyond this, and you go into the any length of time fares that are significantly more. Why people are penalised for wanting to stay longer either in the UK or the Isle of Man. Why is this? This surely causes damage to the tourist industry, with people here being forced to stay less time to get a cheaper fare. The airline fares are based on the number of people booked on a particular flight, so surely it would make sense to bring the boat in line with a similar structure. Thanks also to the cost of the steam packet is just the cost of living on the island, says Pete. WhatsApper Pete 722. That's is it just a fact of life as far as you're concerned? I.e., if you didn't want to pay the fares, shouldn't have come. Didn't have a sense of humour, shouldn't. The Manx Legion Club takes you stamps, says D. Thank you for that. Thanks also to many people who are talking about what's going to happen with the bishop and what should happen. And if the bishop doesn't retain a vote within LegCo, does that diminish our standing? Does the Sodra Man diocese suddenly become second rate because the bishop has always had a vote and now won't because some politicians have decided that's the way it's going to be?
Oh, hello, this is Santa, and I love listening to Manx Radio.
Drive smarter, drive more reliable, drive a great deal at Mannin Motors. With a superb range of cars for every budget, always available. And if we don't have it, we'll source it. Plus, servicing, valeting and prestige detailing too. Mannin Motors, Richmond Hill, Douglas. Find us on Facebook or call 420 420. That's 420 420. Drive a better bargain at Mannin Motors.
On the first day of Christmas, my true love bought for us a Haldane Fisher bathroom.
Visit Haldane Fisher for paint, timber, power tools and screws. Plus, bathroom suites, a fantastic choice of doors and more. With quality products to get the job done. For friendly, expert advice and great service, call Haldane Fisher Ramsey on 815 441 or Douglas on 624466. You'll find everything you need to improve your home at Haldane Fisher. See online or visit your nearest branch in Douglas or Ramsey.
Walk through the Northern Lights into a land of ice and snow at Ramsey Garden Centre. Indoor and outdoor lights, a magical range of real and artificial trees, decorations, gifts and much more. Christmas at Ramsey Garden Centre, Albert Road.
Your home is your castle, and we think that too. So when you're thinking of new flooring, think Castle Carpets. With over 50 rolls of stock and thousands of samples to choose from, let us carpet your castle. Call 842 480 or visit the showroom in Peel.
Save over a third on festive centrepiece joints at ShopRite. An easy-to-carve turkey breast joint that's a delicious alternative to a whole bird, now only £3 per pound. Or a succulent unsmoked boneless Danish gammon joint, just $2.70 per pound. Roast, glaze or slow cook for a delicious crowd pleaser. How about a rind-on pork loin joint for the crispiest crackling at only $2.25 per pound? Can't make up your mind? Why not buy all three? Festive meat savers now in at ShopRite.
Anyone fancy some free money this Christmas? That appears to be what's on offer from Paul Crane MLC as he asks Tynwald to support his motion which calls for the Isle of Man to benefit from the revenue generated on the seabed out to the median line between the Isle of Man and the UK. Scotland was granted similar benefits just prior to the independence referendum, so surely the Isle of Man has a strong case. All the angles are explored on Agenda this evening at 6 p.m. on Manx Radio with me, Phil Gaughan. Mr Crane does describe this as a David and Goliath situation, but perhaps it's worth the Isle of Man placing a polite request in its civil service sling and taking aim at the UK.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
9 minutes now before 1, and a message in from Edwin. Thank you, Edwin. Turbines aren't turning, I can see out of the window, so no electricity. Just been looking at them in the sea. I'm looking at Gridwatch, which is a UK website, gridwatch.co.uk, which gives an update, very recent update on the UK's production of electricity. And at the moment, it is currently, wind is 7% of electricity, no, 17% of electricity in the UK, and gas is 43%, nuclear 12%, biomass, i.e. wood, is 5%, solar 6%, and coal 2%. That's currently what it's standing. And it's that way, isn't it? Because we've never had this before, it's something we'll either have to get used to or just look as something that we would have had to get used to. Depends. I don't know whether you think that the government is hell-bent on putting up wind turbines, and that's what all the planning's going for. Although Michelle Haywood did say they haven't actually ordered the stuff yet. There's all sorts of rumours about we've ordered the wind turbines already. She maintains that we haven't. Thanks also to what happened to the entrepreneur spirit of the jet ski man. If the steam packet cost is rocketing, buy a jet ski and a box of milk tray. Very romantic. Do you remember that during the lockdown? Oh, wow. How romantic is that for Christmas? A jet ski and a box of milk tray. And is it true that jet ski was bought? It's at the Motor Museum in Derby. It's a tourist attraction. I think we're too close, if not in the Antichrist era, to drop the bishop, as the Antichrist don't like the name of Jesus Christ being uttered, says Texter 248. May God be with you. Happy Christ Mass. We are at a very religious time of the year. I mean, it's not the most, obviously. Easter comes right up there. But as it is at the moment, do you think it's something that you'll be thinking about if you go to midnight mass this year? Lots of people. The churches are always full during midnight mass at Christmas. Is this something you'll be thinking about? I mean, how religious do you consider yourself? And does the presence of the bishop in Tynwald, we mentioned this last week, is it a nice to have, is it nice to know is there, or is it a prerequisite, do you think? Something that certain politicians are intent on at the moment, on considering what's what. The MSPCM, Manx Wild Bird Aid, both take stamps, says Julie. Thank you for that. The lady with 2 bags of stamps can now put them there. What I'm concerned about regarding the bishop's vote is this just another example of change for change's sake. Ian on 817, there's no need to change this, and I feel it's a classic example of doing this to distract the voting public from the abject failure of current MHKs to deal with the major issues which affect the public and need to be dealt with as a priority, not just change for change's sake, which the bishop's vote appears to be, says Ian. It's the old shiny ball thing, isn't it, that illusionists do. Look at the shiny ball while they're taking the watch off your wrist. I think also Crossroads for Carers take stamps as well, says 667. In fact, let's get this straight. If you are a charity that takes stamps, please drop me a line. We'll mention everybody who takes stamps. And do these new postal tokens actually count as stamps, or does it have to be a snazzy stamp anyway? Drop me a note at manninline@manxradio.com, or you can, of course, call the answer phone.
When the Mannin Line's not on air, call Manx Radio to leave your opinion for broadcast on 682 631.
Indeed, we'll do that if you want. And you could text, email, call and WhatsApp whenever we're on air. The lady with the July sailing has chosen the Southern 100 week. That's why it's so expensive. You have to know where you're booking. This is what I said 2 weeks ago. The price of the boat, £400 plus, and the staff only pay £25 for a family and a car, says Paul. Well, that's always been the way, though, hasn't it? I mean, it's always been that staff discount was applied for steam packet workers. So it's really nothing new. I don't know about the specific amount, but we'll see. Thanks also to Happy Manxman, who said, a thumbs up for the steam packet. They sorted out our trip home yesterday. The shore-based staff as well as the crew are absolutely ace. So many thanks to all. That's 413, very happy Manxman. On the way after 1 o'clock today, she's here. Christy D is here from 1 till 3, and later on, Beth Espy is standing in for Alex in the afternoon. Or is it Chris in the afternoon now? I never know. Later on this week, Chief Minister's going to be here on Friday. Chief Constable was going to be in later this week. We've had to rearrange that for operational reasons. So this coming Friday, Alfred Canon MHK, the Chief Minister, will be on air chatting to you before Christmas. And next Monday, a week today, Teresa Cope, Chief Exec of Manx Care. So if you've got anything you want to ask then, you can either take your chance on the day, or in the meantime, use the off-air channels of communication, manninline@manxradio.com, email 682-631 on the answer phone. That's it. Thanks to Howie Kane on the phones today. Make the most of the rest of your Monday.
WINT